Introduce myself first. Edward Gilbert. Hi. Yeah, you know my face. Anyway, so I'm on a Mac because I don't have Windows with a FaceTime camera or anything on it. And I'm just going to kind of give you a rundown of what the end user experience should be with the software and what is built in to be utilized by everybody and what is set to be used for specific customers. All right, so this is the text editor, obviously. This is where the text are imported and the user can configure how they want their text to scroll. They can set the font size in here to, wow, to pretty big font size. Let's bring it up. Ugh, wow, let's go bigger. So I found just some text online on how to grow potatoes. So that's what this is. So one of the things that I've never really been happy with is the fact that the font size selector for the editing and the font size in scrolling are two different things, and they're controlled two different ways. Like for the scrolling font size, it's controlled by lines per screen, like how many lines of text are visible on screen. Where with the text editor itself, it's a point size. And they really don't, I think there is a function in here where you can sync this lines per screen and font size, but it's not super effective. It would be nice if you were looking at the same thing most of the time, but not super, super important, but kind of something I would like to take care of. So in the controls tab, this is obviously where all the controls are set up. This image quality thing that we have here, that can go. We don't need that. Multiple display test. This can be an automated thing. It doesn't need to be, we can have it test frequently on its own in the background. Now there's stuff missing here. This is an older build because there's the newer one actually has a drop-down menu that allows the user to decide if they want to use a touchpad. Like a PowerPoint tool, so they can stop the scrolling and page through the text page by page. That's some coding I did, and that should be in what you have. If not, we got to get it, because that was specifically built for Jeff Dunham, the comedian, with the puppets, and they asked for it, so I have to make sure that's there. This right here is a really good tool to understand what the app does. That this is the keyboard shortcuts. Let's see if there's something unusual. Oh yeah, this 9-0 bit right here. These are temporary marks, bookmarks. I don't think anybody uses them. I've never had anybody say, hey, those are good, I use them all the time. And what this does is, like, if you're scrolling through the text, you can hit the 9 key on the keyboard and it makes a bookmark in the scrolling. And then by hitting 0, it jumps back to that point. Everything else is pretty important. So if you want to know, like, the functionality and what functions are running and what they're designed to do, the keyboard shortcuts is a really good place to look, because it'll kind of explain it. In fact, I tell my customers that are using the software, if you know the keyboard shortcuts, you know the software. The sensitivity thing, this'll, like, if somebody has a trackpad or they're changing the speed with a wheel or something, sometimes it's a little too aggressive, so they can change that. The scroll smoothness and speed thing, the smoothness, I don't even know why I had that done originally, but if you combine the speed and the smoothness, you can cause the text to stop and scroll and stop and scroll. But that could have been easier accomplished, like by just telling it to stop after so many lines instead of having like this smoothest thing. Because to get it to work right, it's this fragile combination of speed and things. So it would almost be better to just not have that and just tell it to scroll like to the next screen and pause for a certain amount of time. So you can literally just have like a setting or something we could do where that's not needed. The monitor stuff, you understand that, but what I want in the secondary monitor is to have like maybe instead of having image quality, you would have a list of your primary and secondary monitors, or next to this you would have a drop-down menu that would show all the monitors that are in the array. I mean, in the array that comes back from the connected monitors. And you just pick this one, and you pick that one, and so you just add a couple more drop boxes. The left and right margin thing. This, I don't see why these need to be controlled independently from each other. I mean, you literally could just have one slider that brings them both in and both out, because you're always trying to center onto a camera lens. You're not trying to shift it to one side or the other. So you literally could have just one slider that could change the value for both of them. That's probably something I could do. Then we talked about keyboard scroll. This advanced file import, this is, you can look at the code and see what that does, but that's that big parser that Joe was using, and it slows down the parsing a little bit. I don't even know if it's necessary, as long as we can get rid of those anomalies that happen, like character changes and omissions of characters and stuff. I think it would be good. So on to this window, the recording window. I built this back in the very beginning. I had this set up, and what this does is it allows the user to I'd say record, but it's really not. It's more like programming, because they're basically scrolling through the text after hitting the record button, and it memorizes their functions, like when they pause, when they speed, when they slow down. Where this is really useful is like if somebody doesn't have an operator to help them do the recording, so they can sit down in front of their computer, program it to work the way they want it to, then they just get in front of the camera and they don't have to worry about controlling it. It makes their life a lot easier. The thing is it's not really used by everybody, and if it's using resources all the time that it really doesn't need to, we can allow the user to enable and disable the entire thing. Like, we could actually have this tab just disappear if a certain checkbox checked. We could put it in here, like use a screen program or recording function or whatever, and that goes away. So that's kind of a rundown of the initial interface. So let's actually hit, well, there's one other thing. This jump in enabled. I don't know if you figured out what that means, but that allows you to put your cursor anywhere on the screen. If that checkbox is selected, it starts scrolling near that point. So it's not, its purpose is to allow the user to find a spot in here and say, okay, well, I want to start from right here. And then when they do that and they jump in, that way if they have to redo something. The thing is Joe used character sets or something. I can't remember how he said he did it. So it's not right on point. It's just relatively near that point. What I thought would be cool is if it was paused like this, like when you pause it, like another overlay window shows up that has like a scrubber. Like this down here can be used as a scrubber for speeding up and slowing down. But it would be nice is when the user pauses the text, instead of having to use the scroll wheel, they can literally just manually start scrolling it using a little scrubber, so they can kind of control it manually without having to reach down here and grab this. Or we can make it so this can pop out and the user can just select it as a as a popover tool. Just the little things that aren't really super important, but I would like to tackle, and maybe not now, but in the future. So what I did for the paging, it was kind of pretty clever, because if you notice, the line count is counting up for every line. So what I did was just took the lines per screen and added them to this number and returned this function. So say if I wanted this to go to 220, hit return, and it should, yeah, so it jumps ahead. So all I did was created a function that would take this value, increment it by the lines per screen that was designated, and then I created a paging function, and then I used a keyboard input, a remote control input from a PowerPoint presentation remote, I think page up and page down, to actually be able to page through this, because some people don't want it to be scrolling while they're using it. They would rather just have it stand still. And again, that's also something very nice to have and convenient if we come back into the controls and change the smoothness somehow to be more of like stop and after scroll to the next screen and pause, and then scroll to the next screen and pause or something. Or maybe we just leave it like it is. I don't know. It's not a big deal. So there's all these keyboard shortcuts. Like if you hit 1 on the keyboard, it'll go back to the beginning, 0s to the end. And then Joe built in this, let me scroll ahead a little bit so you can see. Joe built in this bookmark tool thing, so you can add a bookmark, and you can give it a name like produce or whatever, and we'll assign it to 6. So what that did was now, whenever you hit 6 on the keyboard, it'll always go back to that same spot. So that was how the bookmarks work. And then he also made it to where, since there's only 10 keys, you could actually take a bookmark and move it up and down, or move it completely off the numbers and have it down. So this list could go down forever. And I think it even becomes scrollable after it gets so big. And that's how the bookmarks work. And then let me demonstrate that smoothness thing. So the arrow keys control the speed and the smoothness. So if I change the smoothness, see, this is what the experience is like. Now, to get it to work right, I gotta lower the smoothness a lot, really decrease the speed. I think the lower the smoothness, the farther it jumps. But see, it's still only going like line per line. And some people actually like this. It's not a lot of people, but the people who like it really like it. So maybe we should just leave that alone. A lot of talk on that subject, right? All right, so that's kind of like an overview. You're not seeing what I'm seeing on the second screen, but everything's working fine. So the name ZaPrompt initially came from back when all the other apps were coming out, like the other apps that were being used had to buffer before they would start scrolling. So you would hit run, and then you would see this progress bar loading everything up. And this just started, and I said, God, it just zaps open. And that's where I come up with the name ZaPrompt. So I kind of hope that it maintains that. I know the window build that you gave me seems to do it now, but the first ones that were acting buggy, they were like loading really slow after you hit run prompt. But all right, well, that's basically the rundown of everything. Hopefully I didn't confuse you more than help you, and I'm gonna load this up to YouTube or something and send it to you.